The 1st Armoured Personnel Carrier Squadron was an armoured unit of the Australian Army raised for service during the Vietnam War. Raised in 1965, the unit was deployed to South Vietnam in May 1966 to join the 1st Australian Task Force. After that, one APC Squadron was involved in numerous operations in support of the 5th and 6th Battalions, the Royal Australian Regiment, with the most notable action coming on the 18th of August 1966 when the squadron was involved in the Battle of Long Tan. In January 1967, one APC Squadron was redesignated as A Squadron, 3rd Cavalry Regiment. History. Formation. One APC Squadron has a convoluted history. Officially, the unit was first raised at Bukvoed, Victoria, on the 1st of July 1965. However, the squadron also draws lineage from one troop, A Squadron, 4th, 19th Prince of Wales's Light Horse. 1 TPA Squadron 4 19th PWLH was a regular subunit of a primarily citizens military force light cavalry regiment. In June 1965, this unit was converted from Saladin armored cars and Saracen armored personnel carriers to M113s and sent to South Vietnam as part of Australia's initial commitment to the Vietnam War. Working primarily with one route, the troop was placed under the control of the U.S. 173rd Airborne Brigade, operating in an area to the north of Nui Dat in Phuoc Tuy Province, under the command of Lieutenant Robert Hill. Initially, the troop was deployed with only 8 carriers as at the start of the Australian commitment to the ground war in Vietnam. The Australian government intended to limit the size of Australia's forces to a single infantry battalion tasked with maintaining security around the American base at Gan Hoa. In September, however, as it became clearer that there was a wider role for Australian ground forces, the size of the troop was increased to 13 personnel carriers and 2 mortar carriers, and after that the troop was used in a variety of roles including infantry mobility, maneuver, direct and indirect fire support, casualty evacuation and providing a medium lift stores transportation capability. In March 1966, 1 TPA Squadron 4 19th PWLH was redesignated as the 1st Armoured Personnel Carrier Troop, and it subsequently completed its tour of Vietnam in June 1966. At the time, 1 APC Squadron arrived and all of 1 troop's vehicles and some of its personnel were subsumed into the squadron. While 1 APC troop had been conducting operations in Vietnam, 1 APC Squadron had been training in Australia in preparation to relieve the overworked troop. On the 9th of March 1966, the Australian government announced that it would increase the size of Australia's ground forces in Vietnam to a task force consisting of 2 infantry battalions, a squadron of armoured personnel carriers and a number of ancillary units. Additionally, it was also announced that the Australian Task Force, known as 180F, would operate as an independent force from the Americans and would take primary responsibility for an area inside Phuoc Tuy Province. Deployment to Vietnam. In May 1966, an advanced party from the squadron arrived to take over 1 APC troops' vehicles while the rest of the squadron, travelling upon the troop carrier HMAS Sydney, arrived at the 180F base at Nui Dat on the 9th of June 1966. Under the command of Major Robert Haggerty, who had previously served in Vietnam with the AATTV, the squadron consisted of 7 officers and 109 other ranks. Some of these men were national servicemen, although most of the officers and NCOs were irregulars drawn from the 1st Armoured Regiment and from A Squadron 4 19th PWLH. Upon its arrival, 1 APC Squadron's first task was to help secure secure the task force base at Nui Dat by erecting defenses and clearing the area. However, once this had been done, the squadron took on primary responsibility for ensuring that the road between Vung Tau and Saigon remained open. In order to achieve this, a number of cordon and search operations were undertaken focusing on the villages surrounding Nui Dat. On the 21st of June 1966, 3 Troop was deployed with 6 RA on Operation Anagra, a search-and-destroy mission that focused upon the village of Long Pho, which had long been a haven for the Viet Cong. As 180F did not possess any tanks at that stage, the APCs of 1 APC Squadron were in high demand and were required to undertake many different roles in this time. These included both cavalry and armored personnel roles, such as fire support, reconnaissance and offensive maneuver, as well as serving as infantry command and control vehicles, troop transport, stores portage, and casualty evacuation. Whilst 1 APC Squadron was involved in many operations in the 6 months that it was in existence, probably its most notable action was on the 18th of August 1966 in what later became known as the Battle of Long Tan. 1 APC Squadron's involvement at Long Tan came at a very crucial moment in battle, but nevertheless their involvement in this battle has received little acknowledgement. 1 APC Squadron's first task during the battle was to transport A Company 6 RA to the battlefield to relieve D Company, which was holding out against desperate odds in a rubber plantation to the west of Long Tan. This task fell to 10 APCs from 3 Troop under the command of Lieutenant Adrian Roberts. Having picked up A Company from the lines at Nui Dat, the column received permission and set off across country in the pouring rain at 1800 hours. Fording a flooded creek, they shook out into assault formation astride the plantation road. The move took just over an hour, as the column had to fight its way through pockets of enemy and brave the heavy defensive artillery barrage that was being put down around D Company. However, by 1900 hours they reached the beleaguered company. Upon arriving at the plantation, 3 Troop advanced through D Company's position, carrying out a quick sweep of the area through which the attacking Vietnamese were forming up for another attack, catching the enemy on the flanks and inflicting heavy casualties. Upon seeing the arrival of the APCs, the enemy broke off its attack, the survivors melting away back into the jungle and leaving the Australians in possession of the battlefield. The Australians suffered 18 men killed and 24 wounded. Of these, one of the men that had been killed was from 3 Troop. The man was Corporal Peter Clements, who died on the 27th of August 1966 after succumbing to the serious gunshot wounds he received during the battle. For their actions during the battle, 2 men from 3 Troop received gallantry awards. Corporal John Carter received the Distinguished Conduct Medal for his actions in neutralizing an enemy anti-tank weapon, while Lieutenant Adrian Roberts received a mention in dispatches for his leadership of the troop during the battle. Following the battle, 1 APC Squadron continued to operate in the area, supporting 5 and 6 RA. As a part of the follow-up operations, during Operation Crow's Nest, 1 Troop operated in a cavalry role as part of a combined infantry armor sweep either side of Route 2. They continued to operate in this role, providing fire support and transporting troops across the battlefield for the rest of the year. Redesignation. In January 1967, after a reorganization of units of the Royal Australian Armoured Corps, 1 APC Squadron was redesignated as A Squadron, 3rd Cavalry Regiment. This squadron subsequently rotated with the regiment's 2nd Squadron, B Squadron, as the 3rd Cavalry Regiment maintained a squadron on operations in Vietnam up until November 1971. One troop remained even longer, staying on until March 1972. Structure: Squadron HQ Admin Troop 1 Troop 2 Troop 3 Troop Support Troop. Commanding Officers: Major Robert Edmund Haggerty. Decorations: 1 DCM, 1 Mid.